A lot of you were streaming us during the 6 o'clock hour, so we appreciate that. And we're here to talk more about that family in the Inland Empire. If you're not familiar with that, that's actually where Rob and I grew up, down in Southern California. This is not San Bernardino County, which is where we grew up. This is in Riverside County, right next to San Bernardino County, in a city called Paris, right? This family, and I know you guys are seeing this all over the place, but we do know that a 17-year-old girl, and we're going to lead with the most positive part of this story because it is really a miracle, the fact that this 17-year-old girl who had been held captive for who knows how long by her family, her plus her 12 other siblings, so a total of 13 siblings, held captive in their parents' home, again, in the city of Paris in California. She found a cell phone in her parents' house after who knows how long, and finally found the will after not having any food, no water, I guess no light, to call the police and say, hello, me and my 12 other siblings are being held captive in this house. So just an incredible story. We do know that these are the Turpins. This is the family, mother and father. We have David Allen Turpin, 57 years old. They're up there on the tiny, if you can see on the right-hand corner there. Louise Ann Turpin, 49 years old, very religious couple. For whatever reason, they decided to hold their 13 kids captive. Obviously seen out in public before. I did learn in a New York Times article that they moved here to California from Texas back in 2010. So they've been here. If we can pop up that picture of the house, because it's in a very IE, Inland Empire, suburbia home. Just a normal stucco house.
There it is. There's some video
you
of the
see
house.
Okay, so there's the house there. Neighbors claiming they've seen the kids. One neighbor said, not too, I guess last year they saw that this family was putting up, the kids were mowing the lawn in the backyard and putting up some Christmas decorations. So they've seen them. The kids, as described by people in the neighborhood, very pale. Their skin was very pale because I guess they hadn't seen a lot of sunlight. But nothing, I guess, for the neighbors to call police a long time ago. It took the 17-year-old to call the police. So we're grateful for that. But a very bizarre story, captivating, because how did nobody know, and why? What is the motive? Why? The parents have been arrested. They're held in jail, 9 counts each for torture and child endangerment. They're on bail for $9 million.
So you've been answering a lot of the questions that are coming through on social media. We have people asking, Richard said, how did the neighbors not see anything? They did see something.
They saw kids out and about, I guess, enough times.
Exactly.
Where they didn't need to call police?
The video of the front of the house was much appreciated. People want to know if we can get inside of the house. I don't believe anyone has that footage yet.
We're seeing a ton of reporters. Our sister station, KABC, down there, I saw their big truck. I'm sure that's the first thing people want. Police did describe some of the things they saw inside, right?
I think at first glance, you know, we have not seen inside of the house. I'm sure they're processing it as a crime scene at this point. So obviously you're not, media can't get in there because they need to gather evidence, because if they arrested them, they need to get evidence to go ultimately to press charges. But that house looks small. Let's just talk about that in the beginning. The house looks very small for that number of people. And at first glance, and thank goodness they blurred these kids' faces out. Because at this point, this is alleged, we're in the beginning of this, but these children are victims of something that's just unfolding, but at first glance is horrifying.
And they age and ranges from 2 years old to 29 years old. 7 of the 13 adults, but police, when they first discovered their bodies, they're alive, but they did not know that they were adults because they were so malnourished that they looked like children. The 17-year-old who found the cell phone in the home and called the police, the police are describing her as a 10-year-old. That's how malnourished she looked.
And I think the key to understand all this, because the fact that there were technically adults in the home, if it ranges up to 29, so there is a question of some of the older kids, why were they still there, but the police say that they were shackled. In the home.
That this was technically a school.
The father is registered as the principal of this, I think it's Sunnyside or Sandcastle School. Are these children educated? How are they being treated? What are the ramifications, and how are they going to feel once they get in front of a therapist? Once they really start taking apart everything that's happened to them over the years. You've seen it with cases in the past of women who were sexually abused by people who just picked them up on the side of the road randomly one day and finally got out. Can you imagine what these 13 people, adults, children mixed, have to say.
It says that. So this happened yesterday. This arrest happened yesterday. The 17-year-old was able to summon police officers to her home. Again, oh, excuse me, not yesterday. Yesterday was not Sunday. Yesterday was Monday. This happened on Sunday. Authorities initially couldn't work out their ages again because they looked so young from being starved, but that the kids begged for food, or the kids and adults begged for food after they were rescued from a home in Paris, again, on Sunday. It has since been revealed that the couple filed for bankruptcy in 2011. They owed up to $500,000 in debt. The dad, was earning $140,000 a year as an engineer for a defense contractor, while the wife stayed at home. And again, it sounds like they were homeschooled, at least the ones that were qualified to be students. And that's how I'm just trying to put my shoes in the neighbors, you know, put my feet in those shoes in the neighbors. What would I have done if I had kids on the street who were always going around? You knew that 13 kids lived across the street next door.
Right.
But you never saw any of that, or maybe you did, but on occasion.
Right, you just don't think about it.
Especially I don't know. I feel like I would have a welfare check. You don't have to say, hey, this is me and I'm calling for this said reason.
Right.
Just a welfare check for the sake of the kids.
But think about it. Even where you live now, I don't know, we haven't lived there very long, but I just met one of my neighbors recently, and I've been here for 3 months. You don't think about who is living next to you as much as you should in this digital
suburbia,
age.
In the Inland Empire.
Even then, I used to live in suburbia, and we would only see our neighbors when they were either arguing in the driveway or sat out back to have dinner once in a blue moon. Other than that, you don't have that sort of interaction with them because you have your family, you have social media, you have your friends. People are disconnected from that culture of a cul-de-sac anymore.
But when some neighbors are describing, this is according to the Daily Mail, but we're getting this information from various sources, that some neighbors said they had never even seen them. They didn't even know 13 kids existed, right? New neighbors come into town. How would you know down the street that the Turpins actually have 13 kids unless you actually talk to your neighbors? I get that.
Right.
But others compared the kids to vampires from Twilight because they look so pale. So they had seen them. Comparing them to Twilight, that's how pale they were. I don't know.
Some kids are pale. Like, I just don't want to blame the neighbors for not calling this out when they might not have known.
I'm just trying to put my feet.
Hindsight, I mean, they all know now that they probably should have said something. Because it sounds like that many of them had that same sort of conclusion that something was a little bit weird. Something weird was going on there. And to your point, this is I think this is a symptom of something much bigger, which is we don't know who we live next to anymore
at all.
And I would love to hear some comments about this.
Yes, we've lost.
This I think is a real problem, and I know it's a problem because let me tell you about my wife. She grew up in a small town, town in Montana called Glasgow. Everybody knows everybody's business in this town.
Sure.
That's a downside, but you know what?
Everyone
when times are tough, when they're stuck in the snow, they pull them out. They know everybody's business. I mean, I'm telling you, a small town where you know people, just on a surface level, hello, how are you doing, is so much better than living right next door to something like this, and nobody knows. Not only they don't know what's going on, but they don't ever even want to get involved in any way, shape, or form. And we can understand that because everyone's busy. We all have things going on. But I'm telling you, a tight-knit community with the downside, of people knowing too much or assuming too much about your life is a much better situation than strangers living 50 feet apart with something like this going on.
I thoroughly agree with you. We have Kimberly Morgan chimed in and said her kids are as pale gets, and they're part Hispanic. Her husband and her mother-in-law are super dark, so she can't blame the neighbors for questioning or not questioning their skin color. But then we have some people saying, this is so terrible that the kids had to go through so much. It makes them feel sick that the parents did this to their own children. But then we have more comments saying, I live in a cul-de-sac with 6 people in my house. There's no way that people in my neighborhood don't know about my crazy circus that happens every single day. But think about it. If these kids are trained to not, I don't know what they're trained to do, but if they're just accustomed to not speaking loudly and carrying on, they could go unmissed.
Well, and some of them, again, from 2 to 29, if you're just tuning in now, we're talking about that family in Paris, California, moved here from Texas back in 2010, filed bankruptcy in 2011. They were homeschooled by the Turpins, their mom and dad. We're not sure. 7 of the 13 of them are adults, but police didn't know that they were adults because they were so malnourished.
Right.
But what's interesting here to me, too, is that when you look at them and then you hear that they were a very religious family.
That blows my mind. It blows my mind.
Right?
And it's odd to me that they're in what looks like wedding attire.
Right.
And all of their children are there if they are this religious.
Let's just point this out.
You know what I'm saying? Being married after the fact of having all of these children. That's what it looked like to
they had claimed that they had put messages out there. Yes, these are all of our kids, because people would question that.
They were renewing their vows. That's what it was. They were renewing their vows.
Okay,
but let's just say this. This is very early. This is very early in all of this. There's so many things that we are assuming and things. Who knows if they are all blood related? That's what they say. We don't know that. I mean, giving birth to 13 kids, I mean, that's difficult.
Or were some of them twins? Were they triplets?
Yeah, exactly.
How many pregnancies?
This is very early, but let me just, let's go back to the very beginning of this. When I saw this on my news feed, as we often see these stories, there's just something truly horrifying when you realize, let's just say that the police and that story's panned out and that's exactly what's going on. There's just something so horrifying about stealing childhood from these kids. Because maybe now at this point, maybe they've been brainwashed, maybe they start to see things differently. Obviously that 17-year-old had come to a point saying, I need to get out of this situation.
I will rather die trying than sitting here. Yeah.
And there's just something that just is so unnerving, unsettling, and changes you forever when you realize that there's people out there that
are capable.
They're capable and motivated to steal these kids' childhood.
And
because
their kids, it's supposedly.
They'll never get that back. I mean, these poor kids. I mean, and for all they know, in their world, that's their life, and that's normal. And that's normal, perhaps. But you know, it really sticks with me. It hits a different nerve the kind of outrage and the anger that I'm kind of. It's under the surface, but just letting you know, there's something truly awful about taking the innocence of these kids and whatever happened behind those doors and ruining their lives and just turning it into some other thing. And who knows what methods that they may have used to make it seem normal for these kids.
Right.
And it's astonishingly sad
and I'm looking at a lot of the comments. People are agreeing with you, absolutely. Joanne Marie Hins, people required to report any sign of abuse would have noticed something, right? Mandated reports have to report if something is suspicious. Such a shame that a neighbor isn't a mandated reporter. That's neglect.
If any of these kids would have gone to school, it would have been reported immediately. Because if you're a teacher or principal...
Which is why they had a homeschool certification.
If they would have had any interaction with law enforcement, I mean, there are certain people that you are required, if you have an interaction, something suspicious, you have to report it, especially with kids.
Nancy DeMay, really quick, saying maybe they put up soundproof walls, because people are saying, how did they not know? I mean, were these... Maybe the kids weren't screaming, because if they screamed and made any noise, they were injured. Who knows?
So it's clear that it wasn't normal to them that this happened, because she did escape, and... So I don't think that they brainwashed the kids to think that this was their new normal or their always normal. But Rob made a comment about the size of the house and it seeming too small. We had a commenter, Robin, chime in and say that we were changing the topic and saying that small houses and poor families abuse their children. That's not at all what Rob was saying.
Absolutely not. It's just how did that many family members live under one roof?
Precisely.
Right. Well, all I'm saying is that there's nothing wrong with that. All I'm saying is that that's a lot of just people living in one place. And all the things that have to go into that. You got to go grocery shopping. That's a lot of food that's got to go in and out. Garbage. I mean, just things like that. Things that would indicate there are a lot of people here. If the kids are older, just transportation. We saw the big van, but all the cars. I mean, there's just a lot of people. To have that many people in one space going in and out, because it does look like occasionally they did leave the house. That's just a lot going on. There's a lot of movement, and it's difficult to contain that many people in the house without word getting out. This is tough to pull off without people knowing and seeing movement.
Peggy Chicky Walsh Gamba, did you read this comment? If you look at the pictures from a year ago, they do not look like they were starved. What has changed? You're right. Some of the images looking like when they renewed their vows. Not sure of the year, but this looks like it was from their Facebook page, the couple's Facebook page. Yeah, they look okay. They spent some money on the attire. Looks like the kids are taken care of. They are all wearing matching outfits.
But who would you imagine is 29 in that picture?
Well, I don't know when this was taken. 29 now, maybe they were maybe 9 years ago, maybe they were 20. I don't know. I don't know. And I can't see faces, so maybe bodies, you're right. But here's the house one more time. Here is the couple who held 13 of their own kids.
They will be in jail for a long time.
Captive. They are in jail right now. 9 counts each for torture, child endangerment, bail $9 million.
Yeah.
I want to go back to some of these comments. Rosa's just saying, how can this happen? Denise D. Menking-Vincelent, there are only 2 people that share the full blame. The parents. Stop blaming the neighbors. Neighbors mind their own business these days.
This is true.
Which is true, and which is part of this narrative.
Right.
That someone else on here, and I'm not sure where the comment is, but they said, this is a case of people minding too much of their own business. But how about if you know, we've also heard of the stories, people not minding enough of their own business, right?
It's such a fine
darned
line
if they
to
do,
walk.
darned if they don't.
But a lot of people are reaching out saying, I hope that these kids are taken in by families that can help them out. And who are you going to find? Yes, some of them are adults.
To keep them all together.
Exactly. The goal is to keep these kids together, at least in our comments. Good luck doing that. If there is a family, let us know so we can help them out.
Right. Gilda Warden, one thing I can say about this is those parents should be locked up forever, never be allowed to walk the streets again to torture their kids like this. This is insane. I know the courts won't do it, but they got to do the same thing to them.
So, you know, one of the comments, that is, I think, probably the debate now, because we are all bystanders in this, witnessing what's going on. So at what
captivated by it.
Exactly.
Because it's bizarre.
At what point in your day-to-day life interacting with people do you really need to say something or mention it? I mean, because you know that viewer's correct. You can't blame this is not on the neighbors. This is on the parents. This is true. But have we witnessed things in our daily life that perhaps we feel like maybe we should have said something? I mean, it is kind of it is an internal debate that I think we all have.
It's true.
There's moments, you know, we've been out, say, at Target, and then you see something, a parent and a child interacting that's a little bit harsh or a little bit too much. Do you say something?
Not your business.
Maybe they're using language you would never use at your home, but maybe that's normal for their home. You feel like you should say something, but then obviously you can't. At what point is a line crossed where, yes, you need to do something, you need to say something?
Yeah.
That's a difficult topic. That's a difficult decision because everyone comes to their own point.
Yeah.
And when are you saying doing too much? When are you too nosy? When is it not your business? And now you're going to bring law enforcement into this whole equation when perhaps it was just a family and that's just the way that they interact. Clearly in this case, this is not acceptable. But in some of these other situations, it's tough.
Then my question for you guys and my question for you at home is, does this cause you to be more interactive with your neighbors? Will you check in on them like Megan was saying? Go and do that wellness check. I think it's motivated me to do that. I'm going to see, first of all, I'm going to meet my neighbors, but then I'm going to consistently see how they're doing because it's scary. Actually, I remember
but some neighbors will not want to interact with you.
And that's okay, but you at least know you're doing your due diligence.
Right.
As a good neighbor, as a good citizen, because I remember it was one of the first couple weeks that I moved into my building. Police officers were coming through to do a wellness check on a boy he was 24 years old, had just moved here from out of state, and his parents hadn't spoken to him in 24 hours. And that's when I discovered the idea of a wellness check. But had I known, he was only a couple doors down from me. So had I known about him, would I have known to check up on him myself? It's just about us taking that ownership, I guess.
I know. It's tough, though, because now you're in other people's, I mean, who knows that whole backstory. This is tough.
It just hurts.
The nation's captivated by this story just because it's so bizarre.
Yep, and so much happening down in Southern California. I feel like it is one story after another. This one is not weather related. This doesn't have to do with the mudslides. This is completely. It has to do with human beings being held captive from 2 to 29 years old.
Incredible.
By their family, and then a 17-year-old who knew enough to just say, I'm going to get myself out of here. I'm reading, found a cell phone in the house, and then escaped the house to make this phone call and saved.
I can't wait
She's a hero this morning, saving all 12 of her siblings.
We have more comments coming in.
Christopher Word saying, let me read the one before that. Anna Jacqueline Rascone says the grandparents had to have known. Who knows if the grandparents were in the picture? They left Texas in 2010. I don't know the story. What happened before that? I don't know.
Sandy Yopini, I'm sorry that we're on our cell phones. Our tablets are down, so we can't access Facebook. This is our access access to Facebook right now. This is how we know what you guys are saying.
Yes.
So that is why we look like we're on our cell phones. I promise we are engaged in the conversation.
Yes. Tammy Brand, how do you bring kids in this world and then treat them like that? Just horrible.
That's the part
terrible.
that's just really, I mean, a 2-year-old, you know, like, when you see a 2-year-old, they're so innocent.
Right.
They're full of life. They're learning. Everything's new to them. You know, they're starting to run around a little bit. They're learning how to talk. They're learning their words. And to know that a child was being brought up in that kind of environment, it's just awful.
Lynette Jackson is saying that we need to check up on the school and see how many kids were registered to that school. Were they receiving the tools that they needed to actually facilitate a school? And if not, what was the school system doing to make sure that that school was actually holding up to its standards?
Well, it was the homeschool. Is that what they're talking about?
But homeschools are accountable to a program.
They are. But it's probably, it sounds to me like it was a homeschool, but just with the family was
just
educating
the family.
their own kids, not
my
others.
aunt has homeschooled her children in the past, and you have to do a lot of paperwork. There are check-ins. There are tests. Where are those tests? What happened during those check-ins?
Well, yeah,
like who is accountable for those schools, for the kids and their schooling? That's what I want to know.
Right, right. Who was or was not checking up on them?
Some of these kids had to be done in high school a long time ago.
Well, yeah, 29 years old. And who knows, again, they don't know how long this activity has been happening. If people saw them out and about a year ago in the backyard mowing lawns and putting up Christmas decor, whether or not that was all staged to make it just seem like, everyone calm down, we're a happy family of 13 and 2. I don't know. I don't know. But this is sad, but also the fact that they were all discovered, not healthy, but they were discovered alive, 13 of them. And I mean, things could change.
And
I don't know.
That gives us hope.
Yeah.
Because that containment stopped on Sunday.
Right. That containment stopped on Sunday.
And they're alive. And I think everyone who hears about this story cares about these kids we've never met. We want the best for them.
Always.
The people will come together to help this family, and you know, again, the parents are alleged to do these crimes. We'll have that court case play itself out, but the abuse, the alleged abuse, stopped on Sunday, and things start to get better the next day. And so that's kind of where we are, is that this is a story that we will continue, I think, to be curious about, but probably every day forward will be better than the day before.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm sure a press conference will be happening very soon, if not reporters getting the information firsthand, since this is down in Southern California. A ton of media is at their house. A lot more questions than answers this morning. Anna Jacqueline Rascon wants to know what religion. We mentioned they're very religious. Arlette Arriaga says, why did they leave Texas in 2010?
Sandy has another question and says, were these foster children or people with disabilities? We don't know any of these answers yet. We promise to keep you informed as the time goes on, and I guarantee there will be interviews with each and every one of these people that take place, and
Shannon
as journalists
Bishop
will report them to you.
Shannon Bishop, how did they keep the adult children? Right.
We don't know.
I don't know.
We can only speculate.
I mean, if someone who is 29 years old, people will say, how did that adult let this happen to them? You don't know how they were raised, how they were brainwashed, if that's in fact what happened.
But if people are malnourished, they don't have the ability to develop their brain in the way that they need to. And so a 29-year-old may only have the capacity of a teenager.
Interesting point. Yeah.
And so it will be interesting to see all of the reports that come through after these kids have gone to the doctors, and we just see what the actual facts are. I don't know.
But these kids, Tammy Bryant, did they ever get medical treatment? Crystal Brazil says they were their own school and filled out an affidavit to be their own school. My kids are homeschoolers and are part of a charter school and have weekly check-ins with the teacher and do state testing yearly.
Exactly.
So those are when someone says, well, how about the whoever was holding the school accountable, and the mom, if she was the teacher, and the father who was the certified principal, correct?
Right.
I don't know.
He was, according to the articles.
Yes, he was, but I'm just saying I don't know like how that slipped through the cracks there.